Hey everybody, it's Tanks and I'm playing World of Pandy. What? Y'all saw what I just did there, right? Sorry about being a little bit late and slow on this video. I had a crazy ass week at work and it appears to be going to be crazier in the next 4 to 6 months. I'm gonna try to keep up with the videos and roll them out within those time frames, but due to the weekend madness, I was late on this one. And because of all this, I'm going to fall back to my old ways, the Sunday releases once again. I thought Saturday releases will be my savior, but I appeared to be wrong. So keep an eye out on Sundays from now on for your Pandy fix. And this is going to be a later release, but I'm going to go ahead and release it just so that everyone can get their Pandy fix. I also want to throw a shout out to Jolly Q Gaming, such a pimping name, for making the Clan War in 45-second videos. They're pretty good, so check them out. I thought his first two were pretty good. His recent one, not so much. Kind of funny when he made that statement about the spies, but pretty good all in all. Now this video is going to be about the Object 704 or the ISU 152 model 1945. Now if you guys didn't know, a little bit of background knowledge on the ISU 152. It started its development in January 1943 using the same concept as the SU 152. The only major difference between the two tanks is the chassis used. The SU used the body of the KV-1S while the ISU used the chassis of the IS. It passed trials successfully in February of 1943, and after a series of modernizations, the ISU 152 began its official production in November of 1943. There was a change made in 1944 in the hull, and it went from being used using the regular old IS hull to the IS-2. A prototype was developed in 1945 using elements of the IS-2 and the chassis of the IS-3 to develop a newer and better version of ISU 152. It was dubbed as the Object 704 during its development, armed with a 152mm howitzer. The biggest gain on this tank is the increased protection by placing thicker armor plates in a more sloped angle. In some areas, this provided the Object 702 somewhere between the range of 170 to 320 millimeters worth of protection. The biggest reason why this tank was not adopted into the service is due to its increased recoil from its gun, which was a lengthened 152 millimeter from the SU 152, which complicated the overall work for the crew, and the reason why it was not put into service is because of a longer reload time. Now, with the big gun from World of Tanks is the BL-10, and the attempts to increase firepower for the ISU 152 in April of 1944, a high-power variant of the self-propelled gun was developed. Basically a longer 152mm anti-tank gun with a big-ass muzzle brake. Testing in July 1944 showed deficiencies related to how difficult it is to operate an unreliable gun, especially with the breech block and the muzzle brake, and unsatisfactory performance of the shells themselves, showing that the shells were not developed to pretty much be armor-piercing rounds. In testing, the 152mm was shown to have a penetration value of 103mm worth of armor at an angle of attack of 90 degrees. Even with the faults, they went ahead and mounted on the ISU 152 chassis and dubbed it as the -2 for trials, revealing that the gun barrel strength and also the gun guidance was unsatisfactory. The gun was never produced because of these faults, and it went ahead and be a relic of history. In World of Tanks, the Object 702 was one of the few tanks in World of Tanks with the def cannon loaded up on this biatch. The gun simply gave me a hard on every time I fired it countless times, causing countless amount of keyboards to be replaced and a roll after roll of toilet paper. The rate of fire and damage on the BL-10 is pretty much the same as the T-95's T-7. The BL-10 does come with a little bit of extra penetration, but it doesn't make any real differences because of the heightened number of damage and penetration it can do. The BL-10 does come with a little bit of extra strength, but it doesn't really matter just purely because there isn't really any differences or any armor out there that can defeat that large amount of penetration it can do. The real disadvantage I've actually seen is actually the gun depression, the accuracy, and the aiming time. The BL-10 does take a little bit longer to zero in on the targets and has a larger area of effect. The T7 manages a .01 accuracy better at 100 meters. And you guys are pretty much asking yourselves, and probably me, what's the difference? Yes, it gives the T7 155mm a 16% better chance of hitting its target at 500 meters. This is really critical for the T95 just purely because it has more of a super long range ability. But when it comes to close combat or normal combat ranges, be 200 and 300 meters, doesn't make any real difference. So if I had to pick a difference between the two, the BL-10 would be more for street fighting, brawling, and more like, drive-by shootings, where the T7 is more for long long-range sniping. Now, the armor on the Object 704 is much better than its older brothers on the Soviet tech tree. This one can actually deflect rounds after round like a boss. It's not super great compared to the other tank destroyers like the T-95 or Jagdtiger, but it can still be knocked out of battle in a quick volley of death when they're thrown towards you like artillery and general small arms. Overall, it can take care of itself against most guns with less than 160mm of penetration and manage to hold down attacks from like the E-75. The main weak spot that I can actually think of is the lower glacis and the armor underneath the gun mantling. Those tend to be the spots that get hit most and tends to pin straight through into my gut. The mobility on this gun is what is expected. It can pretty much haul its def cannon around from A to B and bring it to bear to destroy targets at will. The turning rate on it is somewhat disappointing, but it can still manage alright. Now, the weaker armor with the mobility tends to be a big help when you're trying to support other teammates and be able to put a shell out there just to be able to save a teammate. Plus, whenever you're attempting to support a big push or attempting to outflank your enemies, it is a lot of help, especially if you're a team player. The T-95 is not built for teamwork purely because it's not built to move anywhere. It's slower than shit, so the mobility is a real good thing on the Object 704 just so that you can support your teammates, move up with them, and at the same time bring that def cannon along with you. Overall, all in all, the Object 704 is a whale with a monster def cannon. The gun is outstanding in all respects minus the reloading time, but what you gonna do about that? You know, I've seen a lot of players drive backwards once they spot you and just run. The tank ganders a lot of respect when you run across it and attempt to kill it. I believe that the tank destroyer is a big reward for grinding your way through all the weak ass bastards of the Soviet Motherland, but by the way, it's well worth it because you can pound the hell out of tier 7s in 2 shots within 30 seconds. Very well worth it, very highly recommended, and if anyone is trying to aim for it, it is something that you want to grab. Now, what I would suggest, purely because I'm sadistic like that, go ahead and get the Jagdtiger, then get the T-95, and then the Object 704, because you're going to be disappointed in any other tank destroyers that you get once you get the 704. Now I get to that part of the video where I get to give away some World of Tanks gold. Today I'm going to be giving away 3,000 gold to the US server and 2,500 gold to the European Union server. To win said gold, you must be A, be subscribed to my channel, and B, post a comment down below, maybe about the question of the video, which is, when it comes to the Russian tank destroyers, which one do you think is the best, excluding the Object 704? If I had a overall opinion on this question, I would go ahead and have to throw it out at the Su-85. Even though the Su-85 is only a tier 5 tank destroyer, it does 1-shot, 2-shot a lot of targets within its tier, especially if you're only going up against tier 6s. If you happen to be the biggest and baddest tank on the field of battle, you are the boss. Even though you can't take any hits or be able to be smacked around or anything, you can dish it the hell out. 2-shotting KVs, 1-shotting Shermans. Oh, that gun, the 107mm def cannon for that tier, is epic. So the Russians have a long-standing relations with just big guns and no armor. That's what I like. So everybody, you guys take it easy. I am Pandy, or I am Tanks, and you guys take it easy. Good hunting.